All right, we are back after an amazing trade deadline, one of the best ones in recent memory for sure. It was very exciting, particularly because of the Rantanen situation. I'd say both our teams made a couple interesting trades, and the whole league really did.
Oh,
I think so. They made some interesting. Well, over the course of like the month, I'd say, leading up to the deadline for sure. But
there's really only one Canucks one we haven't talked about yet. And I wouldn't say it's the most interesting one of all time.
Carson Soucy for a third? I don't know. I'd be really happy with that.
I'm thrilled with it. It's not like it's the most interesting point of discussion of all time.
Well, I disagree. I think our viewers really want to hear about it. But we'll give some trade grades out. We'll give our thoughts on how the team is playing currently. Well, I guess we'll start there. How do you feel about the Canucks lately? I'd say just in the game past the deadline.
Oh, we're talking about our teams, not the trade deadline yet?
Well, we got to start somewhere, I think.
Okay. The one game since the deadline went pretty well. We're playing a Minnesota team that's sliding, and we got absolutely caved in. I mean, there was no real reason for us to win because we weren't doing a whole lot. I feel like a lot of the numbers don't tell the whole story because... I mean, even in the first, the shots were lopsided, but the shot chances were even.
Yeah.
The third period was bad, though. They didn't do anything in the third. They let up the game-tying goal, which is also kind of a depressing one because Myers. It was a power play goal for Minnesota, and Myers was clearing the zone. He had an easy lane to clear the zone, and his stick snaps in half, and then they score off that pressure, which especially sucks because our penalty kill percentage is so good, and that tanked it a little bit.
Yeah.
You can't really blame anyone for that. I mean, you got tired bodies out there that had the puck, and I mean, you obviously can't blame Myers for his stick snapping. But I mean, it looked like it was one of those games where we just give up the losing goal late in the third because they just kept on getting chances.
Yeah.
But we were the ones who scored late in the third.
Rare.
Thank you, Kiefer Sherwood and Philip Hronek. I mean, Philip Hronek is a god. I'll talk about Philip Hronek. I'll wait to talk about Philip Hronek until later.
Yeah.
I'll just talk about the game for
He's
now.
been pretty good with Hughes out, I'd say.
Yeah, I'll get to that. But Teddy Bluger scored two. I mean, the main part of that game was Elias Pettersson finally bumping the slump. And the way he scored two, not just the fact he got like a lucky bounce or whatever, it was a fucking rip.
He ripped
from the blue line.
Finally.
Right into the top corner. That's the stuff that we need from him. And I mean, he delivered on it there. I screamed really loud at that. And
that's Calder Trophy.
Hopefully, I mean, he played a great game against Anaheim the game before also. He didn't get on the score sheet then, but he was the third star and played a crazy game. And then this game, he scored and played well for the... I mean, he's been our best forward on the ice for the past two games, which he should be. But it's still nice. It's good. And hopefully it keeps going for these last 20 games because that's the only way we're making playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, you like you said, you kind of got caved in. But like at this point, you do not care. Because there's been games the Canucks have played where you are doing the caving in. And
really,
like, well, maybe not recently, but you know, you just take what you can get. You take what you can get. And
yeah, there are games where I felt we probably deserved to win. We didn't deserve to win this one. We won it.
No.
It evens out across the course of the season, so it's fair, I guess.
You got to win a couple of those.
We definitely should have put up a better effort against Minnesota, considering they don't have Kaprizov or Eriksson Ek. But again, at the end of the day, the 2 points is 2 points. Whatever, move on.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think people are kind of sleeping on Minnesota. There's all this talk, especially after the deadline, of how much Colorado and Dallas and even Winnipeg beefed up. And I mean, they're not entirely wrong, but like, I feel like in the East, Minnesota is probably one of the top four teams in the East. Like if they were there, like it's just kind of unfair for them to be in the West right now with the state, especially if the Central, because it's such a deadly division considering who's in the playoffs. It's ridiculous. I cannot.
I don't know. I think they got off to just a hot start and they're riding that. I don't see them.
Well,
being
I mean,
that
but what do they have?
Playoffs.
They're a top 10 team still, even with Kaprizov out. I don't know what their record is over the past couple of months, but like he's gonna come back.
Good.
Hopefully he's come back.
They are sliding,
fully
so
healthy.
they're going to be the wild card 2 team. And I mean,
And
they
that'll be
started
dangerous.
off,
That'll be
they
dangerous.
were fighting the Jets for first in the Central, so they have fallen off. But they didn't do nothing at the deadline.
No.
They got Nyquist, they got Brazeau. They filled some spots that they needed to on the roster. I mean, probably maybe could have gotten a center.
Yeah.
Considering right now it's basically
Pretty
just
dry.
Rossi. I think their 1C against Vancouver was Freddie Gaudreau.
Ooh.
I do like Freddie Gaudreau, not as 1C.
But he's not a 1C.
So they probably could have added some guy like
They're a
that,
weird
but there
team.
weren't a whole lot to get. Like Brock Nelson would have been pretty perfect, especially because he's a Minnesota boy. He got robbed
Thought that was
from
going to
them.
happen.
But I don't hate it. I don't think they're going to be that impactful in the playoffs.
No. I mean, I say this, but they're a second-round exit no matter what division I think they're in. I just think they're, I don't know. They're definitely not first-round fodder. They're not first-round fodder. Like, I don't think they'll go down quietly. But
I don't think
probably
they'd
will
go down quietly, but I think they're going down in the first round. They're going to end up playing Vegas, and I would love to see Minnesota take down Vegas, but I don't think that would happen.
Man, Minnesota, if they could just take out Vegas for the Oilers, and then it's Minnesota Oilers in the second round. And honestly, we do not match up well against Wild. The Oilers fans know this. No matter how good or bad Minnesota is, we kind of always, especially going into St. Paul, we are awful against the Wild. I think the 7-3 or 7-2 win we had against them earlier this season is like the first time we've ever blown them out since they were the North Stars. So just a weird little history there, but definitely some. I mean, the West playoffs, except for the random team that's going to make the wild card, and I wouldn't even count the Canucks in that mix. I think if the Canucks make it, they can do something and they won't lay over. But if like the Flames or like even like the Blues make it, they're just getting swept. Like it doesn't matter.
I mean, we'll see. Crazier things have happened. You got to remember Florida taking down Boston after Boston.
But Florida
broke the
was
record.
a good team.
Yeah, I know they were, but I mean, like, it really just all it takes is going on a run. I mean, Calgary could do it. They have a lot to play for.
They're the
definitely
worst scoring
care.
team
The
in the
vibes are
league.
good in Calgary, so who knows?
I think Pettersson scoring is definitely a step in the right direction for the Canucks. We'll see where it takes them. Definitely, that's the start of some good momentum. But the Oilers, I mean, they've had a really tumultuous last month. I think the deadline additions they did make, it just kind of addressed a little bit of a need. It wasn't exactly what I wanted them to do, but I mean, I generally like it. But the week for the Oilers, we played an absolute cinematic game against the Habs. It was perfect. It was so great. Bouchard overtime winner after some of the dumbest giveaways I've seen from him. And 3v3 is just kind of whatever. You can feel kind of bad about losing, but when you lose in overtime, it has no bearing on how you are as a team. Same with the shootout, especially the shootout. It has no bearing on how you are as a team. Different players are valuable in 3-on-3. Like, there are players in the AHL right now that I think could be amazing overtime players in the NHL. But they're just probably not good even strength players, is my point. So Evan Bouchard is an amazing even strength player, a great power play player, even in overtime. But he sucks. He sucks in 3-on-3. He's just not good in 3-on-3. He just doesn't really have the speed for it. Like he's kind of just got an average speed and isn't too explosive. I think that is where Walman will help us the most, outside of the obvious even strength game where he is pretty good. He is pretty good, but he's probably now, and we'll see what happens, what Knobloch thinks, but he's probably our number one 3-on-3 defenseman. I'd even prefer Nurse over Bouchard. Like that's just to put it in perspective.
I can't wait for Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, Vancouver versus Edmonton, where it goes to overtime. Walman scores and gritties on us to end our season. So excited.
That would be the greatest hockey moment of my life. That would be amazing. I can't wait for it to be 3-on-3 in triple
Biggest
overtime.
aura moments, but then he just immediately ruins it by hitting the gritty.
No, that's extra. Although he did say in the after hours interview that he's kind of done with it, which like makes sense because like that.
Damn.
It kind of was a thing only for a year and a half, and now it's kind of came and gone. He's
gotta find
knowledgeable
something.
about knowledgeable about cringe. I think he knows.
He is. That is true. He's one of the real ones. I mean, he's good on TikTok. He was a good TikToker.
He said he was scrolling on TikTok when he found out he got
He
traded.
was. This
was a
dude's
good
so
one.
brain rotted. Maybe he'll hit the Quentin Byfield. Boom, boom,
Oh,
boom, boom.
that was. You know what? I hate the Kings, but that was hilarious. That was such a good
was.
moment. That was such a good moment.
He
So-
did in the post game interview too. I mean,
Yeah.
I was watching that for other reasons, which I want to get into, but not right now. And I look up and they're interviewing the Costco guys on the broadcast. I'm just thinking, like, does this happen
How
in
did they
every
get
LA
here?
game? Are they always doing stuff like this? Because this is kind of fire.
Well, they're just, man, they got an empire. They got a straight up empire right now. They got a whole
Hey,
monopoly.
Rizzler, do you have anything to say? That was it. That was what happened on the broadcast. The microphone went up to the Rizzler's face, and there was silence for 10 seconds.
I kind of feel bad for him, honestly.
I do too, yeah.
Like, I wonder if his
this
dad
is
is just
this
in
is
on this.
discourse for a different type of podcast. We don't have to go into the Rizzler and AJ and Big Justice right now. Let's go
Yeah.
back to the Oilers because they played a pretty interesting game yesterday.
After this, we'll switch over to our Big Justice podcast. As we all know,
Yeah.
we run that every day. So, so to finish off this week, we played another just cinematic game against the Stars. I mean, first two periods were genuinely as perfect as you can get it. There was depth scoring. Connor Brown was doing things. Can you believe that? He was doing things. He had a great pick off the wall and just got his own rebound. And I think there was like the two amazing McDavid goals that, like, it's great that he's back. But I think Connor Brown scoring something like that is really what shows that this group is finally getting going and at a good time too. Louis DeBrusk mentioned it on the broadcast. They went through that month of slumping, and the Oilers always seem to have they're really prone to this. I don't know if it's particularly a bad thing. Thankfully, it has not happened in the playoffs, but they always seem to go on like a 16-game slump, something like that, where they just genuinely are not themselves and they play some of the worst hockey of anyone in that season. It kind of happened at the start of the year, but it was more just a motivation thing, and obviously playing from Game 7 of the Cup Finals to playing Philadelphia and Chicago in the first couple games, I imagine it would be pretty hard to get up for those games. But against Dallas, they were absolutely dominant. I think the 5v5 chances were like 2 expected goals to 1, like something like that. We didn't get a single power play, which was a little stupid, especially when it got close. They kind of refused to call anything, especially on multiple holds on Draisaitl. But we kind of let them get back in that game, not in a like we're bad defensively way. I mean, we only gave them like 27 shots and maybe 5 high danger chances the entire game, which is pretty good. One of them was a crazy deflection, I think the fourth one, off of Emberson, who didn't have a good game, I'd say. And another one was, again, just a power play goal that was just Dallas kind of going Harlem Globetrotters on us. They seem to be the ones that have the superstar power play this year, especially now that Robertson has gotten going. I think that was a great, not an evenly matched game, definitely evenly matched in the third when the Stars kind of got their stuff together. But for most of that game, they looked like a team that has Matt Dumba and Cody Ceci in their top 4. They look pretty bad, particularly Dumba, who did actually end up scoring, but
His first of the season.
That's 70 games in between goals. Matt Dumba used to be good.
Impressive.
What happened to that guy? It's actually kind of perplexing.
I don't know. Someone should do a case study on him.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, it was an interesting game. I kind of wish Skinner was a little better. I don't think he played bad. But again, when it comes to him, it's not about letting up bad goals. It's about saving the hard ones. And I mean, he had a pretty amazing glove save on Rantanen before he scored his power play goal. But I don't know. I think we can be satisfied. I think both sides, like the Stars fans, can probably be satisfied with, because they were probably going into that game. They don't really care about a win too much. You're not catching Winnipeg, and the Avs are not catching you. You just want to see if Rantanen could do something. And he got a power play assist, and he got a power play goal. So
he's a merchant, is what you're saying.
He is a I actually really did not notice him. I got to say, I didn't notice him. You expected. I mean, he went into Carolina, he didn't fit, but at least, at the very least, he fit in on the Dallas power play where they were cooking, but he just seemed like a part. He wasn't a superstar, especially 5v5. I didn't see anything, particularly towards the
I
end of the
noticed
game.
some stuff. I thought he was definitely out there. He was doing his thing. He was driving plays. I mainly noticed him 5-on-5 when he was getting blown the fuck up, though.
Oh my goodness, that. I'm a little analytics head. I'm not all for that. Oh yeah, you gotta have grit, bro. You know. People in the Oilers Nation comments all the time. We gotta trade Bouchard. We gotta trade Nugent Hopkins because we need more hits. Fair. We need more hits because we are the lowest hitting team in the league, and that's very obviously kind of spilled over to our defensive play, especially lately. But man, when you get players that can hit and are good, that's really special. And that's Max Jones to an extent. We'll see with Trent Frederick. I heard he can hit, and I heard he's good. We'll see. But Jake Walman, immediate impact. Just a great pass up to Hyman. He is... I mean, I didn't even know that he was on the market. Frankly, it doesn't really make any sense to me that San Jose would want to get him or get rid of him because I feel like he could probably be a top 4 defenseman there for a while. I don't really
He
get
could
it.
have, but also I think he's 28 now, and if you can get a first rounder for him, I mean, we'll get into the trade later, but I'm not surprised that they would trade him now, especially because would his value really be any higher on San Jose than it was at that exact moment in time?
Yeah, you're right. They could maybe get like a second rounder next year, like a first. I wouldn't say is too much for him considering his value, but it just looks so funny considering how they got him. Like Yzerman, that is a fireable trade, a actual fireable trade. What is going on with your camera?
I don't know. I don't know what just happened.
Anyways, yeah, I've seen so many comments from Detroit fans on all the posts of Walman getting hits, getting that pass,
Yeah.
all the trade, and they're just clowning Yzerman. And I mean, frankly, they're not wrong. They're not wrong at all.
No,
So I think
and
we can
I
get
mean,
into the trades now, perhaps.
yeah, but I guess as the segue in between the talk of Yzerman and the talk of trades, he didn't do a damn thing.
Not one.
Like his job if his job is guaranteed, that is so dumb. Like he has the legacy in Detroit, so they probably don't want to have some grand exit for him. But he sucks at his job. He's terrible. He didn't make any kind of move during this trade deadline where they desperately needed something to happen. The only thing they did was trade Joe Veleno for 35-year-old Craig Smith and washed Peter Mrazek while they already have
They
Cam
already
Talbot
have like
and Mark
6
Ryan.
goalies, dude. They already
Yeah.
have 6 goalies. I don't get it.
So, no, I don't get it either. He has to be out of a job soon. I'm sick of seeing him ruin the Red Wings.
It's just perplexing. He's made a couple like great moves, but most of what he's done is just miss after miss after miss. The contracts, the players he chose to get. I remember seeing all this stuff like, oh, he's like a great analytics head and he's going to bring a lot of smart energy to. They are. I don't think they've acquired one good analytical player ever, except for when they got Jake Walman and then they just gave him away.
I mean, you look at them having Patrick Kane, and I mean that's fire. But he's a guy who's
Who sucks.
older, doesn't really back check, but he's a good player to have. Veteran presence. He's got the scoring. Why you have him? Why would you bring in Vladimir Tarasenko? It's just another old guy who's past his prime, who can score but doesn't really do a lot of anything else.
Nope.
Why is Vladimir Tarasenko a Red Wing?
Lord knows. What's he got? Like 2 goals? I don't know. He's not even. He doesn't even score anymore. He's just sitting there being awful defensively.
They could have dumped him at least, done something, and then you also have JT Compher on a stupid contract. I mean, that contract was signed 2 off seasons ago, and during that off season, I was looking at Compher. I was thinking like, oh, this guy would be a cool 3C to have behind Pedersen and Miller. I wouldn't mind giving him like, maybe $3.5 million. They gave him like 5 point something. It's JT Compher, guys. And they gave Andrew Kopp 5.6. I know he had a good season before, but 5.6 for Andrew Kopp. He's done exactly what you'd expect him to have done, which is nothing.
It has to be like the bad team tax, I'd assume.
I guess,
but
I don't know. I don't get it. Okay, let's. It's enough shitting on Steve Yzerman. Let's go into the trades. I guess we can start with the big one, the Miko Rantanen one, because we were just talking about him quite a bit. So let's see. What is the full trade? I mean, I know what it is by heart, but I'm still gonna look at it
by
anyway.
heart.
Miko Rantanen from the Carolina Hurricanes to the Dallas Stars for Logan Stankoven, 2 firsts, both conditional, and 2 thirds.
2026
what do we think of that one?
And
what are our trade grades for both teams?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of hate on Carolina here, but I think considering the circumstances, I would give them a B. I would give them a B, and then I'd give Dallas an A+.
I agree with you that I would actually probably agree with you on both of those grades. I think Carolina is getting too much flack because they look like the ultimate losers, and they are kind of losers here. But when you look at it as a whole, trading Marty Necas, who was not going to resign there, and Jack Drury, a second and a fourth, and then you bring in Stankoven, Hall, 2 firsts and 2 thirds, you kind of come out of that pretty okay. I mean, Stankoven's... But the problem for them is that they're a win-now team, and those moves help them in the future. Like 4 draft picks plus a rookie.
Yeah.
And then, like, Taylor Hall is kind of just mad.
They
did nothing to make them better this year.
Yeah. I was going to say, what really hurts their grade here is not... I mean, the trade in a vacuum is kind of... Like, you probably... Maybe another first in there, and it's, like, fair. But yeah, like just the philosophy of the team. I mean, the management even admitted in the presser afterwards that they ran out of time to get like a Brock Besser or Rickard Rakell or another top 6 forward, which I think is what really kills them here. I'm not sure what was going on with the trade. I mean, they literally agreed to the trade like the day before the deadline, but they were just ironing out the contract. I think they were seriously just waiting for the actual trade to go through, and then they ran out of time, which is kind of hilarious. It is
interesting. So apparently the Canucks were only asking for a first for Brock Besser, and I think like there's no way Carolina would have any problem forking over one of those firsts that they just got for Besser. So if maybe they ran out of time, maybe someone's lying and Vancouver wanted more for Besser. I mean, we look at some of the other things that players got, like Beauvillier got a second. Yeah. Dumoulin got a second. You look at some of those, I feel like they might have been asking for more than a first, but yeah, Miko Rantanen really screwed them over. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Just took his sweet-ass time.
I mean, yeah, he screwed them over twice.
Yeah, so I'll agree with you. I'm happy with an A+ for Dallas and a B for Carolina. I mean, Dallas got one of the best players in the league, 100-point scorer who's already been clicking. I'm assuming he's going to find some long-term success on Dallas, and
hopefully
they got him to a contract which is far under what he was asking for. Like we were looking at Miko Rantanen maybe being a $14 million player.
Yeah,
$12 million by 8.
You got to look at this as Colorado and be a little upset because I wasn't their final offer to Rantanen 11.5. I
feel like they were looking towards the 12.
Yeah, even if they were a 12, like especially if you're Rantanen, wouldn't you rather none of this had happened and you just extended in Colorado? I don't know. It worked out for Colorado just fine, and it probably is going to work out for Dallas, but it's just a strange situation. It's a weird chapter in NHL history, honestly. It's just strange. I'm very happy with Rantanen on Dallas. I didn't want him to be on Carolina because Carolina bores me, and I want to care about one of the best players in the league. I'm very glad he didn't go to Utah because they're going to be challenging us for wildcard spots in the future, probably. I don't want them to get better. I don't care about Dallas because they're just going to be a playoff team for the foreseeable future. They're no competition to us at all. They'll be on the other side of the West too.
Yeah, and if we end up in a wild card battle against Dallas, then something wrong has happened to Dallas. Yeah. Like something very wrong has happened to Dallas. So I'm happy with that how that worked out. And I mean, Dallas now has maybe the best top 9 in NHL history. I mean, it's actually insane. Roberts, when healthy, it's Robertson, Hintz, Rantanen, and then Marchand, Duchesne, Sagan, which was great before Sagan got injured. and then Ben, Johnson, Granlund. They're in a position where they have Wyatt Johnston and Mikael Granlund on the third line.
Man,
that's insane.
Why'd they trade for Mikael Granlund again? Why'd they do that?
Why wouldn't you? I mean, he only cost a
one.
first. He's a great player. I don't think they expected that they were going to get Miko Rantanen eventually.
Oh, that's probably. I imagine if they know they're going to get Rantanen, they wouldn't have made that trade.
But Granlund's
now
been,
looks a little weird.
Granlund's been pretty fine on Dallas. I don't think he would re-sign, especially with how clogged up it is now. But I think he has 0 goals and 8 assists in 12 games, which with the smaller
Not
role
bad.
he's playing on Dallas than he was on San Jose, that's fine.
Solid. Yeah, like
Gonna
a
be good depth
55
scoring.
point kind of pace. But you're right. He's not. I don't think he's going to sign in Dallas, especially considering they don't really have the money if he's going to want like 6.
Yeah.
He to me is a guy that seems to go for role even more than like winning. Like he chose to sign in. He didn't sign in San Jose, but he chooses to sign where he can actually get top 6 ice time. I imagine he might go to like the Ducks or San Jose again. You know,
He could be a very valuable 2C to many teams. I mean, he'd fit pretty perfectly for the Canucks, and I partially only say that because Granlund's like one of my favorite non-Canucks in the league. I love following him. I don't think they would go for that just because he's older. I think he's like 33 now, but he would fit pretty perfectly as the 2C. There are many teams that could use Granlund's services as a 2C. The only real way I see him re-signing in Dallas is if he wants to ring chase, but he could get a lot more money and a lot more minutes in basically any other team in the league. So
I can see him being a Canuck. I can see it. They got to fill out their top 6 with a center.
Okay, let's move on. I think we should go to the second most notable trade, arguably the most notable trade.
One more thing on Rantanen. I know it's been like 30 minutes, or whatever, and everyone's talking about Rantanen. But there was the rumored thing that not even rumored, it was confirmed. The Oilers had a package for him, and Rantanen was willing to sign for, I think it was about 12.5, which is way less money than he would have gotten in Dallas, considering taxes. Like he would have ended up getting like $2 million less per year. But this is breaking news. Mimamoto Rumor Factory. The package, I've been told, was Bouchard, a second, a third, Sam O'Reilly, and Bo Akey. And the Dallas Stars wanted a first instead of a second, or the Carolina Hurricanes wanted a first instead of a second, but the Oilers wouldn't do it. Rantanen wanted to sign, and they were willing to give up Bouchard. I do not agree. I think the Oilers technically win that trade in terms of value. I don't love Bouchard that much, even though I think he is a top 10 defenseman, but it's just a matter of like philosophy. Even if you have Walman, your defense is perfect now. It's not like perfect, but it's constructed, and you have an ideal top 6. Getting rid of Bouchard completely demolishes any future we have on defense, really. It just kind of pushes the cup window. It just kind of narrows the cup window a lot. Even if you have to pay him a lot, I don't know. I'm kind of glad we didn't make that trade.
I'm very glad you didn't make that trade because I would see a line of Draisaitl, McDavid, Rantanen in my fucking nightmares.
I also just don't think we need another superstar forward. I think we need another top 9 forward.
Yeah, you kind of have like 2 of the best forwards in the league. You might not need another one.
Yeah. You allocate that money to depth forwards and another defenseman, which we got in Walman.
Maybe?
And a goalie. In the future. In this offseason, I hope. But yeah, I
think Marner's
I'm really glad we did not do that.
Can we go on to the next one?
Now we're done talking about Rantanen.
In terms of overall value of a player, Rantanen was the biggest trade at the deadline by far. But in terms of absolute shock value, the biggest trade was the Florida Panthers acquiring Brad Marchand for a conditional second. Now, I don't know if there's any other way to go about this other than giving Boston the biggest F- ever.
Yeah. I mean, if you consider that in a vacuum, Marchand wouldn't go anywhere else except for Florida. Getting what is basically a first-round pick because of the conditions, getting basically a first-round pick for him, even if it's like it's going to be 31st, 32nd overall. Let's be honest. At minimum, 28th if they end up going down kind of early. I think that's fine. I think that's fine that you got it, especially because it's a 2027. That's a solid draft, at least on paper. Although it's a few years out, I got to say. But for a 35-year-old, in the vacuum, I'd say that's a C. They probably could have gotten 2 first-round picks from like any team in the league if he was right on the market. But the way they fumbled and the stories that came out afterwards are genuinely fireable. It's so bad.
Don Sweeney and Cam Neely are some of the worst
Terrorists.
executives in hockey, I think, right now. It's really embarrassing. I don't know how Don Sweeney even has a job still after how he's run the team the past couple of seasons. He got really lucky a couple years ago when they broke those records just for them to lose immediately.
Yep. 2 years later,
there was no reason
lottery
for that team to be that good. Like Hampus Lindholm was a 50-point player. They had some kind of voodoo magic going on. I think like beyond the value, sure, if it's a normal 35-year-old on your team that you've maybe had for like 2 years, just putting up those stat lines, yeah, trade him for a first, whatever. Your captain who's been on your team for 15 years, that all your fans are begging you to sign, that also really, really wants to re-sign, would probably take a team-friendly deal, wants to talk to you about coming together on a contract, and you trade him. You just send him away without giving him that conversation.
Yep. You said it in the group chat. He got Stamkosed. He got business.
Yeah, he did. But it's like it's different because at least I said he got businessed, and someone compared it to the Stamkos thing. It is completely different, just in the fact that the move the Lightning made was the right move. Stamkos was on his way down. Gensel still has a lot more years of being an 80-plus point per game player, somewhere around there. They made the right move, and it's obviously it's been shown. There's nothing about this that benefits the Bruins. Maybe their future looks a little brighter for having it happen, but now people are going to be looking at the way you treated your captain, who's on your team for 15 years.
Yep.
And they're going to be thinking like, oh, I do not want to go to Boston.
It makes no sense. I mean, we've had a long history of people going to Boston, getting traded to Boston, extending for a long time. It's not happening anymore. That retool, they're not making the playoffs next year unless they like get Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon, and then they retool their entire roster and all their young players are Calder winners. It's not happening. They're not making the playoffs. They're a lottery team again next year. They're going to be a bottom 10 team this year. Why would I don't understand why you treat Marchand like this. For those that haven't seen, they agreed on the term of 3 years, which is very favorable. That probably takes him to retirement. But the Bruins were offering him $3 million per year. $3 million. You pay Charlie Coyle twice that. That is so dumb.
That's less than Dakota Joshua was making. That is the exact contract that Niels Höglander got.
And because they said they were far apart, but they weren't like monumentally far apart, I'd imagine that he just wanted 3 years at like 6.5, maximum 7, which you give to him. Any team in the league gives him that in free agency. It makes absolutely no sense.
You're going to have a ton of money too. Like after all the other trades you've made, you've just gotten rid of everyone.
Yep.
You're going to have a lot of money. You're going to have that money to give to him. I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah. It is a business, but also like the best business is probably re-signing him.
That's why it makes no sense why they're being so stingy with the money, because even before you traded Marchand, you had just traded Coyle.
You don't have Frederick either?
Yeah, you just traded Frederick like 3 days. Like, why? It makes no sense. You're not strapped for cash, especially with the cap going up like $80 billion. Why? It doesn't make any sense.
At least Steve Yzerman is bad at his job, but at least he's not a dick. Don Sweeney is a fool and is probably the worst general manager in the entire league.
He has to be fired.
I would love to see it. I would celebrate so hard if I get to see the news that he's been fired. Anyway, it's clear where we land on. Wait, we didn't even give Florida a grade. I would
Well,
say
it's
an
A
A,
plus.
probably.
A plus. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Well, they won. They got a very good piece who has won a cup, has done well in the playoffs before,
Might resign.
and has made their team infinitely more annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on from there, I think we got to go to the Brock Nelson trade.
Oh, the Brock Nelson trade. Yep.
There was a lot happening in that one. Hang on, I'm scrolling to it right now because I'm forgetting everything that happened. Okay, it was Brock Nelson and William Dufour from the New York Islanders to the Colorado Avalanche for Cal Ritchie, Oliver Shillington, who was immediately flipped for nothing, a first and a third. So, I mean, Dufour's pretty non-impactful in that.
Yeah.
Nelson for a very good prospect, a first and a third. Which, I mean, me looking at that, I'm shocked that nobody would give a first for Besser. But beyond that, I mean, the Islanders look so good in this. I mean, Cal Ritchie is going to be probably like a top 6 forward. He's got a great shot. He's a very, very good player.
I'd say he's for sure top 9.
Yeah, you also get a first-round pick and a third-round pick, and you don't have to pay 33-year-old Brock Nelson.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he's been there for a while, so it's kind of sad for him and for the fans that they can get something done, but that is a good move for the Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go right ahead and I'll give them an A for this, the Islanders. I mean, it's a rare Lou Lamoriello W. I mean, you sometimes you're just a little surprised to see it, but he's one of those GMs that is an old head. He will keep his old guys, but he sets a price on them, and he was open for business because the Islanders, it doesn't look like they're going to pull off that magic this year. It just looks like there's too many good Eastern wildcard teams. But
it's not necessarily bad for Colorado. I think they gave up too much. I would probably give them like a B.
I'd give them a C.
B minus. I think Brock Nelson is good, and he fills a spot in their lineup because they needed a 2C so bad, and Casey Middlestat was not that guy at all.
Not at all.
So they have filled a spot, and as Nathan McKinnon said, you're not going to win with young guys. They don't have any use for Cal Ritchie this season. They don't have a use for first. Brock Nelson, he's a good player. He's a good veteran player. He fills a spot that they needed. I think it's a fine trade for them, but I think they gave up just a little bit too much.
Yeah, you said it pretty well there. I think the first and the third, it makes sense. But I think giving up Cal Ritchie, who I'd say at this point, he's not just a prospect that's like, he's a couple years out. I'd say next year he could probably step into the top 9 and like have like a 30-point, like solid defensive impact. Like some guy who is an actual NHLer. And those ELCs, especially for Colorado, who is a cap, he's right up against cap. It's useful. It's really useful, and it's super important to, even when they won the cup, they had ALCs. I think it's super important for them to have a guy like that. Frankly, I understand why they did it, because there really wasn't any better rental option for a 2C. We'll see what Nelson gets on a contract. Reports of like $7 million the Islanders offered him. That's a little too much.
Yeah, that's great.
It's just a little too much. I like the player. I like Nelson. I think he'll be a great fit. But yeah, just a little too much. It could definitely turn out looking pretty bad down the line.
And then we can go right into another Avs trade. Well, because we're on similar lines here. They acquired Charlie Coyle and a 5th from the Bruins for Casey Middlestat, William Zellers, and a second. Again, I think it's the same problem. I think it's an overpay. You filled a spot in your lineup, but did you really have to give up that much for Charlie Coyle?
It's another weird one. I really don't think Coyle moves the needle at all. I don't think he's that much better. I mean, they're essentially just dumping Middlestat for free, and then they're also giving up a second-round pick for Coyle. There were better depth options available. They want a center, I understand that, but they're just, again, there were better options. But I don't know. Kuzmenko was there for a third if they wanted.
It's worth mentioning, but it's not like it's going to be that consequential for either team very much. I'm surprised they had to give up Zellers in that, to be honest. But Like Coyle's good. He's
a good
a
prospect,
good
too.
player. I think Coyle is really really good in a 3C role. So I don't hate that. The Avs 100% made their lineup a lot better. And when you remember what their depth on
The whole
offense looked
team
like
is
earlier in the season.
completely different. The whole team is just like, I think they moved out half the team, maybe more.
They have 3 of their 4 centers were not on the team at the start of the year, and then neither of their goalies were on the team at the start of the year. Their defense has stayed pretty much the same besides Lindgren, who sucks. Their defense is kind of a question mark because is Lindgren Manson gonna be good enough as a second pair?
No.
I don't mind Manson.
No.
Lindgren is awful.
Something that's gone under the radar is Manson hasn't really been good this year.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting team to watch for the last stretch of the season and playoffs. They're probably matching up against Dallas round 1. That is not an easy task. They might get bounced by Miko Rantanen. But they definitely made their team better in the short run. But looking ahead, we might see another 2017 Avs team in the future.
I think I don't like the direction. They're clearly going for win now. But again, with the Cal Ricci thing, you can be better for longer if you kind of keep that. If you keep a player like Cal Ricci and whatever prospects they also have. I don't know. It's not a great philosophy to go all in when you're in the hardest division in hockey. I understand you got to go for it. I understand you got to send a message to the players and the fans. That's absolutely part of it. Because if you sit there and do nothing, that kind of sends a message that you don't want to win. But like the Charlie Coyle trade is enough. They made a trade for Lindgren. They completely revamped They literally completely revamped the goaltending. They revamped the bottom 6. I just think the Delson trade was a step too far for the Avs, and I don't think they gave up the right players. I don't know, but they are better. They are better.
You have to think maybe if they just let Nelson go, maybe they could be the landing spot for Granlund. I could see him working on that team really well. I don't know why I keep bringing up Mikael Granlund.
You gave up all that. Yeah, you got Granlund on the mind, but then you gave up
all that
for
Mikael
nothing.
Granlund. I don't know. Have you noticed how much I like Mikael Granlund?
I have, because you drafted him in fantasy.
Yeah, but it's not even just that. I like him. Like, I like Dylan Strome because of fantasy. I have actually just been a fan of Mikael Granlund. Most of them, if we search up Mikael Granlund in chat, most of that's me, and he's on someone's team in the chat. It's like mainly me. I'm a big fan of him. Really, I want him to go to a team where he can succeed.
Really pack watching Mikael.
What are you going to do if he's an Oiler? Pardon?
What are you going to do if he's an Oiler?
Like, there's really only one team that can actually ruin players for me, and it's Vegas. Like, Hurdle went there, and I started hating Hurdle. If he goes to Edmonton, I'm fine with that. Gets a chance to win, and
he might go to Vegas.
Like, I don't hate Jeff Skinner. I liked Jeff Skinner before. I like him a little bit less now, but I don't hate him, and I'm happy that he didn't get traded so he can see playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't despise Edmonton. I did a little bit last year, but now it's like the Canucks are in a completely different world than the Oilers this year, unlike last year. So it doesn't really bother me that much if he goes to Edmonton. If he goes to Vegas, though, oh my goodness, I'm going to cry.
I'm kind of in the same boat with the Canucks, yeah. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, I have 3 more trades for us to go through, and the next one that I have is the one that you would be most interested in, which we've touched on a bit. The Edmonton Oilers acquired defenseman Jake Walman from the San Jose Sharks for a conditional first and Carl Berglund. I'll give my grades first because I know you're going to have some stuff to say. That's a win-win trade. I mean, at the end of the day, Oilers don't need a first, and Sharks could use Walman, but the first is a lot more valuable. I'd give an A to both teams. And especially looking at how the Sharks acquired Walman in the first place because Steve Yzerman is a dumbass. They got Walman and a second from Detroit for future considerations, which means they effectively got a first-round pick and a second-round pick for absolutely nothing. So I'd give them an A+ on this just because of how they got Walman in the first place. And I'd give the Oilers an A. I mean, could have made a bigger splash, but Walman, I think, fits the team well. He's a good player. I'm happy with that for Edmonton. I think it's great for both teams.
Yeah. I didn't even know Walman was on the market. I was sitting here playing Minecraft, which is very rare. I don't do that all the time. But I was sitting here playing Minecraft. I was playing Bed Wars. and I look at my phone for the first time in 2 hours, and I just yell, Jake Walman! I see the tweet from Elliot Friedman, and I have him in fantasy in 2 of my other leagues, so I've been invested in this guy the whole way. And even before that, I've seen his analytics. I've watched him play plenty on Detroit and St. Louis. He has legitimately always been a great player, and he's always had that kind of 40, 50 point puck moving, but also solid defensively, that kind of potential as like a number 3 defenseman. That this could be our Devon Taves trade. I'll just put it out there right now. This could be our Devon Taves. I don't know if he's going to end up a like top 10 defenseman like Devon Taves was in past years, but he does everything you need. He does everything you need except be ridiculously physical consistently all the time and be like elite defensively. He's not an elite defensive player, but he is a borderline elite puck mover, and he does play solid defense. He is everything the Oilers wanted. I originally wanted him when Detroit gave him away, but it's very clear they didn't ask anyone else, which is one of the dumbest things about that move. They just said, take him. Take the second round pick. Take him. Yeah, they got a first and a second for just having a good top 4 defenseman for a year. Like, they just rented him, and they gave him away.
Steven Yzerman pulled the good old Nico Harrison. Or I guess Nico Harrison pulled the Stevie Y, but just give away a good player, not asking anyone else what they'd give for him.
It's so perplexing. It's like
I think Walman's also a great power play quarterback. Obviously, you have Bouchard to do power play 1, but Walman could step up there at some point, and you have a better guy than Ekholm for power play 2.
Yeah,
in that sense. How old is Matthias Ekholm?
Matthias Ekholm is, I want to say he's 33. So he's probably got a couple more years of being like elite.
Yeah, he's more of a defensive guy anyway too. So
he's 34. He just turned 34. Or no, he turned 34 in May. Okay.
I think Edmonton in free agency should be looking at a defensive-minded right-handed defenseman. I think that would complement Walman well, but Walman Nurse could work. I think it's good. I like Walman a lot. So, besides the fact he graded on my team.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give both sides an A minus here. The only thing I can say is I think San Jose should have kept him. There's a whole debate there whether you could possibly use that first round pick more than a 28-year-old defenseman. But I just think for a rebuilding team, it's important to have some players there who are good at what they do instead of always selling them off. And for the Oilers, a first round pick for a guy who was traded away for free looks a little bad on the surface. But I mean, he is worth a first round pick, especially because that's going to be like basically a second round pick. But yeah, I think good for both sides.
When that original trade happened, I think we knew San Jose was going to end up flipping him for a lot more. I mean, that's what Mike Greer's done. Mike Greer has been incredible with asset management. He's just gotten these contracts and then given them away for a lot more than
Granlund, Jake Walman.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Cody Ceci.
Yeah, how do you flip Cody Ceci? Like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, he's. I am enjoying the Mike Greer run in San Jose. He's doing a good job. I hope that they can become competitive before the vibes really get destroyed in San Jose. But he's doing a good job.
I think they've probably got one more year of being bad before it starts to be in concern. They're definitely, despite not taking a step in the standings, it feels like they've taken a step this year just because of how amazing. Like, Celebrini is a legit 1 seed already, and he's 18, 19. So that's definitely a step. Will Smith hasn't been as good as expected, but he's still been, like, he's having fun.
Will Smith, I will defend because he started off the year really, really bad, but he's turned it around a lot since. He's been doing decently, and
yeah.
Also, I want to shout out William Eklund because he's the points leader on the team and has been just complete. I saw someone in my comments section compare him to Joe Thornton, say he's like the new Joe Thornton because he's just been a very, very good playmaker. And no one's really talked about it because Celebrini is getting all the shine, but William Eklund, he's a great player. He should be point per game.
They got a couple of high picks there, and they got more coming in. I mean, futures.
We got Sam Dickinson coming up on defense too.
Yeah.
And then they have Askarov. So
I will say this: it's been a long time since a California team has done anything. The Kings kind of had a little hope there, but it might be controversial, but it feels like they've peaked. It feels like they peaked last year, but right, like the month before they fired McClellan. That was kind of, they had taken control of the division, but now they clearly do not have the scoring. The young guys have not panned out. Doesn't seem like it's going in the direction they hope the rebuild will. San Jose, it's so crucial that those young guys actually break through and get the playing time they did, because that's where the Kings went wrong. They didn't actually play Byfield. They're still not playing Brant Clark for a long time. They didn't let him step in. They didn't even give him the room to step in. So I hope the Sharks don't make that same thing, because, man, there needs to be some competition from California. It just feels like the Ducks are kind of improving now, and their young players are kind of working out, and they're getting the playing time. But yeah, I mean, they're not doing anything right now, and it's probably a couple years out from them being a real threat. But we'll see.
I don't know. I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs, but they're at least still in a spot where they can pretend they're looking at playoffs. They're basically 500. That is a very good step forward from last season.
Yeah, for the Ducks. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Okay, let's move on. We were talking about the Sharks for way too long there. I got 2 more trades, and luckily they're right next to each other on this website, so I don't have to scroll very far. This one was kind of a shocker. I would say... Okay, I'll say what it is first, and then I'll say some more thoughts. The Ottawa Senators acquired Dylan Cousins, Dennis Gilbert, and a second-round pick from the Buffalo Sabres for Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard-Docker. Now, both Norris and Cousins were very clearly on the market, both young centers who have found success. They found success 2 years ago, and both have struggled since. So it wasn't exactly out of nowhere that they got traded, but it was kind of a surprise that they got traded for each other, because both of those guys were potentially going to be traded for Elias Pettersson.
Yeah.
That did come out of nowhere, and it's kind of hard to make something out of this just because both Cousins and Norris have not had great recent seasons for different reasons. Cousins has been bad, and Norris has been injured. So I mean, this is one of the ones where, like, out of all the ones we've talked about, this one's hard to give a grade because it's really only the future that can tell us how this is going to work out, and we don't really know off the top of our head. Like, it could be win-win. Cousins and Norris could both, maybe change of scenery will help both of them, or they could both just keep sucking.
They could. I don't think. I mean, certainly hope for these guys that it's not the same. I think I'm gonna give the Senators a B, and I'm going to give the Sabres a C minus. I'll give them a C. I think there's a little underrated part of this deal. Jacob Bernard-Docker is a good player, and he does still have legit potential. The Sabres are a team that their top 4, as bad as they are, the top 4 is kind of filled out with Power, Dahlin, and Byram. I think you have those guys kind of established now, but they're really looking for that number 4. Matthias Samuelsson has been so dog water, like ridiculously bad. I think he's getting
Yoki Haru.
Yeah, I mean, thank God. It was
very obvious thing that you're kind of skating around is that they needed a right-handed defenseman, a young right-handed defenseman.
The Yoki Haru thing, he said, I've been waiting a long time for that. That was hilarious.
I fucking would too if I were being healthy scratched by Buffalo.
My favorite thing, for considering deadline day, my favorite thing is the stories that come out afterwards. It's always so fun. It's so fun. But
I don't think that Buffalo's a C minus on this. I mean, Cousins was not working out there at all, and Norris, while injury prone, hasn't been bad in the games he has played. And they also got JBD. I mean, Jacob Bernard-Docker is quite a step over Dennis Gilbert. They did have to give up a second-round pick, which is not incredible for them.
I don't know.
But I don't think it's a C minus. Norris is going to be better as a Sabre than Cousins was as a Sabre, I think.
Yeah.
And again, they filled up that hole as for a young right-handed defenseman. So I don't think it's a C minus. I think I'd just give them both Bs, honestly. Like, this isn't really a trade that fully needed to happen, but they both are taking a chance on a player who hadn't been succeeding recently. I think it's fine. I don't think it's gonna add or take away a lot of wins from either team, compared to what would have happened if this trade didn't happen.
I think a lot of the time with a deadline, we make a big stink about, oh, they give up a first-round pick, and this player got there, and it's a big rental. And I think besides the Miko Rantanen trade, the big trades to look at for the future are going to be the Walman trade to see how he works out there, and this trade for both sides. I think, like you said, both sides are improving here, just because I think Cousins' time was he was up in Buffalo. They extended him too long, a bit too quick. They got a little hasty because it's kind of hard to get people into Buffalo. But I think they did good work getting Josh Norris, who is a legit top 6 center option. You can plug him on the top line. You can plug him on the second line. He's on the power play, although I don't know how they got him like net front on the power play. That was a little strange. That's not really his role, at least from what I've seen. And I definitely like their Bernard Docker ad. I just think I don't know why they did this at the deadline. I feel like they probably could have gotten maybe not a better player, but they wouldn't have had to give up that first round pick. They just didn't, the second round pick. They didn't have a lot of leverage right now. They're not making a push for the playoffs. The Senators are, and I don't know. It's just a weird one for the deadline. It's one of those weird ones where it's all of the guys have term except for Gilbert, and it didn't need to happen at the deadline. I think you could have had more leverage and gotten a better player or better picks if you did it in the offseason for Buffalo.
But the Sabres wanted to flip Norris for Pettersson. I don't know what was the holdup on that, but the report was that they wanted to do that, and that the Canucks obviously really liked Norris, but I obviously would not have wanted to trade Pettersson in a package for Norris. I would have wanted Norris on the team as 2C behind Pettersson, but apparently, according to Sabres Access, the Canucks saw Norris as a 1C. So it is interesting to wonder how that fell apart, and thank God it did.
Yeah.
Because our center depth would be Norris, Hedel, Suter, Bluger, and that's quite a step back from Pettersson, Miller, Horvat, Mott.
No. You don't want that.
But I think it's fine. I think you said this is going to be an interesting one to see how it pans out, but the one I'm most interested in is the things that Carolina got for Rantanen, because there's no way they're going to keep those first round picks or third round picks. Maybe they'll keep one, but I wonder what they're going to do with those assets, because they have to add another top 6 forward now. But okay, let's move on to the final trade I have to mention, unless you have anything else to say.
I did want to make a mention of the Maple Leafs giving up 2 first-round picks for a bottom 6 role player and a washed bottom-tier defenseman. Brandon Carlo has been good. He has an 86 overall rating in NHL, so you can tell that he has been good at some point. That's how we do our evaluation of players, is we look at the overall on NHL 25. But he's not good anymore. He's not good anymore.
He's fine. I think he's fine, especially like they're missing Tanev. They needed a right-handed defenseman there. So I think it's okay.
A first, it's the same thing with Colorado. And the Leafs have had good drafting, it feels like. It feels like they've gotten good value out of their picks. I would completely trust them with 2 30th overall picks. And Lawton is not going to stay there. I'll tell you that right now. He's not going to stay there. He's going to price himself out. He's going to go to like San Jose for $8 million. I don't know. Brandon Carlo, he has another year, and they did retain. That's probably why. And they got some picks back. That's probably why they gave up that first. It's just a lot. And you kind of forego having any prospect pool now, unless you really trust your depth picks that much, which I do not. So, especially the Lawton one is a little strange. I mean, just considering what the Oilers gave up for Walman, who is he's a different defenseman. Like he's not the same defenseman, but I think everyone would agree he's better. They gave up less for a player that's paid less in Walman. and they paid up that for Carlo. I don't really
I
get it.
think the Lawton one is way more confusing. No, I think the Carlo one's way more confusing than the Lawton one. Lawton was
Really?
always going to go for a first, even if he's not worth it. Carlo wasn't just a first. Carlo was a first, Minton, and a fourth.
And
And Minton is
you're
a
right.
good prospect, too. So I don't know if Carlo's worth that, but I think Carlo's good. He's not worth that, though.
No.
Shut up, Minton.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Okay. The final one I want to talk about, because I have to mention it.
You have to.
I'm contractually obligated to mention this. I have to. The Los Angeles Kings acquired forward Andrei Kuzmenko and a 7th-round pick from the Philadelphia Flyers for a 3rd-round pick. Now, let me say, I have the perfect trade grades for both teams here. LA Kings, A+ for acquiring Andrei Kuzmenko. Philadelphia Flyers, also A+ for giving Andrei Kuzmenko a chance to make the playoffs. I think it's wonderful on both sides. It's perfect. Great work by both teams. Thank God the Flyers traded Kuzmenko. I did not want to watch him as a Flyer.
Yeah, him being on the Flyers kind of made little sense. He actually had a good run there. He said
5
himself.
points in 7 games. I think it made some sense because he could pair with Michkov.
Yeah, and he did. Yeah,
But
did pretty well.
I don't know if it made sense for the long run.
No.
Because we don't know if he would have re-signed there. And the Kings, that was really the only thing the Kings did. But I was watching the game yesterday, and before I go into Kuzmenko's performance, I have to say I noticed something quite interesting, which is the fact that other than Kuzmenko, they had one right shot forward. It's just LaFerriere, and then
That can't be
10
true.
lefties.
Wow.
Yeah. So Kuzmenko was someone they needed, and I mean, I guess like Besser would have made sense for them.
Yeah.
But they probably couldn't get him. And
He's going to
the
benefit
price would
there.
have been
His
steeper than Kuzmenko.
production definitely. I mean, I think that's a good fit for the Kings. They needed a scorer. It doesn't matter how bad defensively he is, and he's really not recently.
He's not. No, he's turned it around.
But even if he was a complete liability in his own end, they need to score because they are good defensively. They have okay goaltending now, but they just cannot score more than two goals a game. I don't care what their home record is. You're not going to beat Edmonton unless you're scoring 4 goals a game. You have to be able to put up 3 or 4 consistently.
Watching the game yesterday, I think Kuzmenko looked very good in the system. They plugged him on the line with Kempe and Kopitar, which was the first line. I don't know. Their first line and second lines are kind of pretty even right now, but Kopitar and Kempe have been struggling recently, and they needed some guy to get them going, and that line looked pretty good. They couldn't... It was very clear that Kopitar and Kempe have been struggling recently when I was watching the game, even though Kopitar did score a goal. He scored a nice tip goal. There was one time on the power play where Kuzmenko centered it to Kopitar right in front of the net, and he whiffed. And then there was another time when Kuzmenko made this sick spin pass, backhand pass from the goal line right onto Kempe's tape. He was unguarded, and he just shot it right off of Hofer's, I think it was his blocker. It was a fine shot, but Kempe regularly buries that, so they need some guy to get them going, and Kuzmenko looked great. I mean, he made an amazing defensive play where he was like very late in the shift. He was a minute through a shift, and he forced the puck out of the zone. I forget whose stick the puck was on. I think it was maybe Robert Thomas, but he forced it out of the zone, forced it deep into the Kings zone, or the blue zone. Forechecked really hard, kept the puck in there while the rest of the team changed, and then got his ass off the ice. It was great.
Yeah.
He didn't have a whole lot of chances to score. I don't know if he ended the game with a shot, but
Really?
he was looking great on both ends. He just needs to get the confidence in a shot, and that's always been the problem. Sometimes he just doesn't shoot the puck at all, and it's pretty frustrating because he has a great shot. I would assume that especially in his debut with a team, he doesn't want to give off the vibe that he's a puck hog or anything, so he was passing first, but he looked energized. He looks excited to play for the Kings, and the post-game photo with all of them flexing with Byfield, he was already in it, smiling, his good old koozie smile, and I wasn't happy about him going to the Kings at first, but I'm happy about it now. I'm really excited to see him in playoffs, and I hope that it works out for him on the top line. I don't want to see him get shoved to the fourth line like he did everywhere else, and I don't want to see him not perform in these last 20 games and then go off to Russia like Nikita Gusev or Ilya Kovalchuk.
He just might, to be honest.
I'm hoping he doesn't. I mean, he's good enough to play in the NHL. I'm hoping that he stays.
He is. I respectfully, I hope he has 0 points, 0 goals, 0 assists against the Oilers in the playoffs, because I mean it's looking like that's going to happen again. But yeah, I can definitely see that working out. Honestly, I can see it. We probably will. I think we've been going for like an hour and 10 here. We'll probably wrap it up pretty soon. I did want to briefly go over. They traded Shea Weber. That is a thing that happened.
Yeah, that is something that happened.
They got Victor Soderstrom, who, I mean, he's a bust, and Akurati. Just a bunch of random moves that it's Shea Weber, Victor Soderstrom, Akurati for a 2026 fifth. None of those players will ever play in the NHL. I think Soderstrom may next year, but I think he's probably just an SHL player from now on.
Ratu's okay.
Ratu is okay, but he doesn't have massive potential. And Fabian Zetterlund for essentially just a second round pick.
That one was a shock. That's a good trade for Ottawa. They also got Ostapchuk is pretty good. Ostapchuk could be a good depth player for them in the future. Gregor is back in San Jose, and he's he's a fine bottom sixer. He's fine, but
nothing special.
It was a weird one.
It was a really weird one. It's just because it came out like half an hour after the deadline, and it kind of made no sense because. Again, with San Jose, you're trading Walman, you're trading Zetterlund, those kind of middle of the lineup guys who are in their prime right now, I'd say, and you need to have players to fill the role. The cupboards can't be completely empty, but now they are. I just don't know if that's sending the right message, and especially because this was kind of a sad price to get for Zetterlund, unless it was clear he wasn't going to sign an extension, and that may have well been the case. Considering where they are, the San Jose Sharks. I like this ad for the Senators. He's a good middle six, second line guy. He plays physical. He can score. He can basically do anything you need. He's a solid defensive player. I think
he's young.
Yeah, he's young. I would have liked to do this trade for the Oilers, but I highly doubt that nobody else could pay this price. I don't know. Maybe they didn't want to send him to the West. I don't know why they wouldn't want to do that because they just gave Walman to the Oilers, but we'll see where Zetterlund does. But I feel like that could be a really sneakily good trade.
He's only 25. I'm surprised they wouldn't want to keep him. I mean, you got to have some when they're going to be competitive. He would still be like late 20s, early 30s. You need some guys like that.
It's not like Walman.
I'm kind of surprised they wouldn't keep him.
Yeah.
I'm a big Zetterlund fan, though.
Doesn't
you know how he says his own name? I saw NHL Europe. You know that NHL Europe video where they have all the players say their names in their own languages? I'm obsessed with it. It's Fabian Zetterlund.
Zetterlund? It's not Zetterlund?
Zetterlund.
I thought it was Zetterlund.
Zetterlund.
Interesting.
I love the Fabian, though. I just call him Fabian Zetterlund now.
Fabian.
It's fun.
All right. I don't think we have time for a mailbag, unfortunately. We're reaching
an
hour 20.
Dude. We didn't post it. We forgot to post it. You don't have to lie to them. We just forgot to post it.
Yeah. That's 2 weeks in a row.
We did it last year. We forgot until a little bit after, but we did it last week. Not last year. Last
mailbag
week.
may be cooked. No, we'll
remember next week.
Yeah, we'll go back to it next week. We'll be fine. That was the trade deadline review. What did you think about your team? Do you think you did good? Do you think you did enough? Do you like your moves? We'd like to hear it in the comments. Thank you for watching and listening. Another week of the Pacific Perspectives podcast. That was episode 20-something. I don't know.
On everybody listening's souls, Andrei Kuzmenko is scoring 4 against Vegas tonight.
You're going to cause a mass murder. Everyone's soul is just going to get lifted to purgatory.
Oh, we good.
All right. Well, that's all for me. You have anything else to say?
No, I said it.
Yeah, well, it's a month until the playoffs. I'm feeling that vibe. I finally have a little bit of hope for the Oilers now. I still wish we got a goalie, but I'm kind of feeling it. Jake
My
Walman
team's
has me
fucked.
excited. As Connor McDavid said, wow, I'm excited. All right.
2 words. I'm absolutely thrilled to keep going this season.
All right. Goodbye.